I should speak now.
You're live.
Oh, hey everybody, and welcome. My name is J.D. Flynn. I'm here with my journalism partner Ed Condon. We produce a journalism project called The Pillar. We're very, very grateful to have been invited to the University of Dallas during your annual Groundhog Bacchanal, and we have thus far found it delightful, and we're looking forward to the ritual burning of the groundhog this evening, or whatever it is that will happen. We don't entirely understand it, but we're looking forward to it. We apologize for our garb. We thought that this was how people dress in Texas.
And we've since been told that actually this is how people dress in Fort Worth very specifically.
Right. So
I'm still confused by it.
Where did you find the shirts?
Oh, well,
in Denver, obviously.
That should have told you something.
So excited were we about this trip that we actually we had someone embroidering these for weeks, because we assumed that you would be in a shirt like this, Dr. Sanford. And
I thought you'd be wearing that suit that I was wearing in those pictures you circulated.
Those were extraordinary. Have I had them printed on canvas and put them up as a sort of aspirational vision casting board? Yes, I have. But that's to be. Maybe before we get started, Dr. Sanford, would you lead us in prayer?
I'd be delighted to. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gracious gifts you pour so abundantly upon us. We pray that we might be faithful to your teachings and that we might be ordered towards wisdom, truth, and virtue in all that we do. And we ask this through the intercession of your Blessed Mother. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Thank you. Now, the purpose of our being here is to have a conversation with Dr. Sanford in the context of our weekly podcast, the Pillar Podcast, in which usually Ed and I just talk about inane and ridiculous things together. And we're very excited because this week we'll have a substantive conversation with a person of substance, which is unusual for either of us. But as a result of that, I'm going to sort of start again, because I have to start in the ordinary mode of our podcast for the sake of our podcast listeners. So you just pretend that we haven't said anything heretofore in the beginning. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Pillar Podcast, the podcast that brings you great Catholic conversation each week. I'm your host and Pillar Editor-in-Chief, J.D. Flynn, and this is a very special live episode of the Pillar Podcast at the University of Dallas, where we have a big and enthusiastic crowd who are going to say things now about how excited they are to be here. I'm joined, of course, by thank you, that was awesome. Actually, I didn't feel good about myself, and now I do feel good about myself, except for that boo guy. But even that guy has a strong opinion about me, and that still lets me feel like I'm kind of the center of the universe, which is the whole goal of having a podcast. So thank you for that. I'm very grateful. I'm joined, of course, by my podcasting partner and Pillar co-founder, Ed Condon, but I'm more especially glad to be joined by the president of the University of Dallas, where we are, Dr. J.J. Sanford. So, Dr. Sanford, thank you so much for being with us.
It is such a pleasure. You've come a long way, J.D.
Well, I want to talk about that. That's very kind of you to say, and I want to talk about our long-standing association. But first, Ed and I are very excited to announce something, and we're actually really humbled by this. Right before we sat down and began the show, Dr. Sanford told Ed and I something which really just blew us away. We were not expecting this, but he told us that the University of Dallas intends to confer upon us today 2 honorary doctorates, and we are so
This is a dream that JD had last night. Someday,
if I hand in my honorary thesis at the right time, I can have an honorary doctorate. But we were, so it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen today. Okay. But maybe we can have a mock honorary degree. Would that be satisfying?
Yeah, I would be. That would be sufficient for me. Ed, would you feel okay about that?
I think really, if you want to, give JD the right feeling that you're looking to give him. Just give me an honorary doctorate and not him.
I like that.
That would I think tick all the boxes.
I'll give him a higher grade on his metaphysics paper.
Well, my question is, so Dr. Sanford said that because I think that I had you. So Dr. Sanford was a professor at my beloved alma mater, the Franciscan University of Steubenville, at the time when I was an undergraduate there. I think you were probably my metaphysics professor. I don't know. I wasn't particularly paying attention in the class. You probably noticed that, and some metaphysical deficiencies and what I have to say. But what I do remember you for is that you were my landlord. And so what I wonder is, are we not allowed to have the honorary doctorate because we didn't get our security deposit back, or?
I'm pretty sure you got the security deposit
we
back.
Shouldn't have. Dr. Sanford, imagine
all $325.
That's exactly. Imagine young Dr. Sanford, a young professor at the Franciscan University of Steubenville, raising a lot of kids on a professor's salary decides one way that I'm going to help to supplement our family income is to buy some houses in Steubenville where they're not very expensive, maybe even just buy one house and rent it out to students. And that way, we'll be able to kind of invest for our family. Prudent, wise, discerning, that's the kind of guy he is. Well, he rented it to me and my friends, and we ruined his beautiful house. And I have felt bad. I have to tell you, I felt badly about that for nigh on these 20 years. I apologize.
Well, apology accepted.
Well, thank you.
Now, the house could not be ruined all that much. It was a rough neighborhood. I bought that house for $27,000.
That was
I think it's still worth 23,000 today.
Probably the way Steubenville's been going lately.
yeah. Oh.
Sorry.
Wah, wah.
Not the university.
No, yeah, a wonderful place. But I want to talk about this wonderful place if we can, if for no other reason than I feel like we need to transition out of that now. But we're really glad to be here. And one of the things we've noticed here at the University of Dallas, even since we got here, is just, and maybe it's because of the time when we're here for this groundhog thing, but just how engaged your students are, how present they are in the camp. I mean, one of the things that has most struck me about being here thus far is that I see students walking around talking to each other and not looking at their phones. How have you done that?
It's not something I've done. It's really the magic of the university, if I can put it in those terms. The place is alive with intellectual engagement. Students all go through the same core curriculum. That increases radically the circle of friends. Everyone's a potential friend, and this happens in our alumni community as well. They're all arguing about whether Achilles is the greater hero than Odysseus.
He's obviously not.
Yeah, he obviously is. And given sufficient time, I'll establish that conclusion with certainty. But this is the sort of thing that happens around here all the time. And our students learn how to engage in serious intellectual debate because our professors are focused on helping them to craft their interpretations, to put forward an interpretation, to receive criticism without wilting before it, without screaming in protest, right? So this lost art of knowing how to argue without quarreling is cultivated in day one in the classroom. Students learn that the life source of the kind of engagements that really vivify the place is that engagement around fundamental texts. And our core curriculum is not just one that's focused on the humanities, although it robustly is, but all of our students take 2 science courses with labs. All of our students take courses in economics. All of our students take either art or math, and that's a strange dichotomy, but many of them do both. And we've got this Rome program where they live together, and Europe becomes a kind of laboratory for their experimentation in European history and culture, and most importantly, the faith.
So I have a question about that. You mentioned the core curriculum, and you give a wonderful example of arguing about who is the greater hero, Achilles or Odysseus. And again, it's obviously not Achilles. I wonder, there's a great enthusiasm for sort of quote unquote a classical curriculum right now in education, and particularly in Catholic education in this country. But education is, I suppose, the training of the mind, the forming of mental habits, and a way of working, and also shaping character. And it's about the transmission of knowledge. But scholarship is an act of discovery. Scholarship goes out. Scholarship is pushing the borders. In Ex Corde Ecclesia, it talks about, that it's always moving forward. It's very much a dynamic, outward-looking pursuit. Is there ever a risk of becoming ossified with the sort of use of a classical-looking curriculum and things like that? Is that a danger?
That's a great question, and it gives me an opportunity to balance out the emphasis that I was placing on the tradition. So you may not know this, but our graduates do really well getting into med school, for instance. So our placement rates are on par with Ivy League schools. Our graduates have outstanding placements in PhD programs and law schools. Many of them go right into the corporate world and climb ladders very quickly. Why? It's really a both and. Ex Corde Ecclesia, as you rightly noted, always pairs the emphasis on teaching with the the addition to the growing body of knowledge. That's something we take seriously here at the University of Dallas. So one of the reasons why, for instance, our science majors are so successful in their med school placements is because our full-time faculty are engaged with them in research in the classrooms. We don't have graduate assistants who are spending some time with some of the students, right? Our outstanding faculty are touching them in the classroom. Yeah, not like that. Intellectually, right? Spending time with them, getting them into internships, and in fact, producing new research while they're undergraduate students. This doesn't just happen in the sciences, it happens in the other disciplines. And we've got serious bars that need to be surpassed in order to receive tenure at the University of Dallas. All of our faculty are actively engaged in increasing the body of research that finds its way into the classrooms. And we spend a lot of time as a faculty celebrating our achievements, communicating what we've done on our sabbaticals or the latest project. Students participate in those activities as well. So the tradition is not one that is there to be studied as a thing of the past. We study history. 4 history courses are in the core curriculum so that we're able to navigate the future. And the study of history is a kind of recovery of your humanity as a political being. And so too with the other disciplines. There's an orientation towards living a life of magnanimity that is the fruit of the education we provide. We want our students to really sanctify their work, to be the best teacher, the best bishop. We've had 11 bishops come through the University of Dallas, to be the best in whatever field that God has called them into. And that too is work that takes place in the classroom.
And how is that? It seems to me that laudable focus comes under a number of challenges in the contemporary milieu, which we can talk about. But one of them is, it seems to me, just a political challenge, right? I mean, it's one thing, I think, for a Catholic university, if all it's sort of doing is repeating what's iterated in the catechism, to sort of say, well, this is very clearly sort of our Catholic identity, and we have some religious liberty protection there. But when a university is doing kind of scholarship and that is in the academy and maybe in popular settings as well, that is sort of animated by a Catholic ethos, it seems to me it may even be putting itself further out on a limb in terms of like the political liability that comes along with that in the contemporary climate. How does a university which aims to really be moving the ball intellectually protect itself from those challenges?
Yeah, there's a lot that might be said in response to that. We have not circled the wagons, would be an analogy to use to describe what you were just saying. We want our students collaborating with students at other universities. We share a number of relationships with other universities. We want our students going out and giving presentations and the like. And so the truth wins out, right? When we're overprotective of what we know to be the case by faith, we fail to listen. We fail to really be receptive to those nuggets that might be gleaned from other traditions, other insights in ongoing research. Augustine describes this so beautifully when he's talking about the Christian relationship to pagan culture, right? We want to be like the Israelites when they left Egypt and were able to take gold with them. There's gold to be found in every discipline, but if you've really learned how to defend the positions, if you're really seeking the truth, and if you have confidence that the truth is defendable, it is able to be found, then you're individually, as a student, as a graduate of the university, well prepared to really be that living witness, adding to an effort in renewing our culture, right? But if we're overly protective, we don't learn how to engage with those ideas, and we're not actually doing, I think, what Christians are called to do, which is to build culture, to be the salt and light in the world. That'll come up in the gospel reading tomorrow.
Yeah.
We should be attentive to that calling to be light.
It's interesting what you say about building a common culture, because I mean, it's one of the things I was, as you probably have guessed, rereading Ex Corde Ecclesia before we had this conversation. I don't tend to have apostolic constitutions on Catholic universities.
Oh, don't beat yourself up. You do, Ed. You're great. You're wonderful. You know.
I have it on
I
the
do actually.
on the header on my computer. It's
Sanford's Office of Readings just cycles through Ex Corde over and over. It's really impressive. It's amazing.
No, but St. JP the Two said, and what I found was a sort of jarring statement, but then when I read it over again, I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. It's just not how I think about it, and if it's not how I think about it, it's probably something that I need to think about more, which is he speaks of there not being cultures, plural. There is only one human culture, and the church's job is to feed into it and to perfect it and to illuminate it and to develop it. And I wonder, we often talk about Catholic universities having a uniquely Catholic culture. And is there a tension between a mindset that says, yeah, there's something particular about a Catholic university? There is something particular about the idea of a university that is Catholic, and at the same time is part of the wider single human culture? Like, how do you avoid a kind of sort of ghettoized mindset that says, well, we're a world apart. We are, for lack of a better word, a sort of Benedict option.
A shining city on a hill.
Yeah.
No, it's a really important question, a timely question, and one that I and many people here have been wrestling with. So in Ex Corde Ecclesiae, when St. John Paul II is emphasizing that commonality of human culture, he identifies the source of it to be the truths about the human person, right? So it all starts with an accurate anthropology, right? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human understood biologically, philosophically? What does it mean to be human understood through the eyes of the faith, where we are homogenes Dei, right? We're all images of God. And that provides a kind of commonality from which smaller cultures or permutations of that fundamental culture can
Subcultures
arise.
isn't necessarily a bad word.
Yeah. This is also something that I think is pointing to the continual relevance, I think forever relevance, of St. John Henry Cardinal Newman, where he doesn't name his collection of lectures on the idea of a university, the idea of a Catholic university. He was charged with founding a Catholic university, and he articulated what it is to be a university. He makes a robust case for theology as a science. It's a discipline. It's not something outside of the fold of human investigation that doesn't have a place within a university. And that case is really a case for a richer, fuller university. The idea of a Catholic university is the idea of a university. And speaking historically, all other universities are, in a way, a permutation of the idea of a Catholic university. Similarly, the education provided at a Catholic university, if it's arranged in the way that Newman describes, where we come to appreciate both the interconnectedness of each of the disciplines, but also their distinctness. He's very concerned to keep the boundaries clear and recognize that at the source of all human knowledge is God, and at the summit of all human knowledge is God. So there's a deep appreciation, not just for the liberal arts. He makes a very strong case for the inclusion of professional disciplines within a liberal arts university. And in fact, the most successful part of the university that he founded was the medical school.
Newman made that case, and I think it's a convincing case, and it has obviously stood the test of time, but it was not a convincing case to his actual bosses, the bishops of Ireland, who wanted no part of it. What did they want? They wanted a catechetical school that would be a feeder for their seminaries, period. And Newman gave them something very different, and that's why he had time to write Idea of a University. But it raises an interesting question, because a university which aims to be Catholic has a set of ecclesial relationships where the church has certain expectations or desires for the university, where the university wants to engage with the ecclesial community, and that includes the sort of hierarchical community. And it seems navigating those relationships today when sort of the ecclesial community itself is in danger of all kinds of polarization and fracturing and disagreement and all those things would be increasingly difficult. I mean, what is the approach for a university administrator just to think about where it fits kind of in the ecclesial landscape?
Yeah, you're both canon lawyers.
Yes.
And
Honorary doctors of the University of Dallas.
Honorary doctors of the University of Dallas. So that there are different possible structures by which a Catholic university can be recognized as a Catholic university. The structure of the University of Dallas is quite different, and there's this Newman Guide list of schools, and most of the schools on that list have differences from our structure. So a religious community. You graduated from Franciscan University. I grew up in South Bend, next to the University of Notre Dame.
Catholic college in South Bend, Indiana. I didn't know.
Do people graduate from Steubenville?
Oh,
yeah, but then they have
do they get the security deposit?
Podcasts for a living.
So the Congregation of Holy Cross, the Third Order Regular Franciscans, Jesuits, they establish a university. They have to form a bond with the local bishop. And then you've got diocesan universities that are controlled in some measure by the bishop and the chancery. We're independent. We were established as a lay-run university, and that has opened avenues for a lot of different religious communities, each with their own structures. So we've got a Dominican Priory on campus. We've got the Cistercians just next door, Holy Trinity Seminaries on campus, Redemptoris Mater Seminary in Dallas. It sends their men both for their minor and their major formation. We need to maintain a very strong relationship with the diocese. Our bishop, Bishop Burns, is a great advocate for the University of Dallas. His title is as the chancellor of the university, but that's not like how chancellor is used in other universities, where that might be the president of a couple of campuses or something like that. He's on our board, so too are three other bishops who are graduates of the University of Dallas, but they don't form a kind of controlling nexus. We've got lay men and women who are working in collaboration with me to make sure that we stay faithful to who we are as an institution. And we see ourselves in service to the church, certainly here in DFW. We draw students from all 50 states and multiple countries, and we're in service to the church in America. We're in service to the church universal. But I would say, the relationships with different dioceses, they vary. So we've got seminarians from several dioceses who come and study at Holy Trinity Seminary. And we need to maintain good relations with the bishops there. The Catholic University of America has a very important role to play within the universities of the U.S. It's very different. They're controlled ultimately by the bishops. And I'm on friendly terms with many of those bishops. They see the value of what we do, but I'm not controlled by them as the president of this university. So I think that this kind of distance between the ecclesial structures is really beneficial to who we are, in the sense of it's on us to be faithful. We need to be affirmed as a Catholic university. All of our theology faculty receive mandata, and that recognition is important. But we're able to be of service in the ways that we feel most called to be in different areas of the country.
I find it interesting that you say that the sort of intentional lay founding of the university and your closeness to the bishops, but not controlled by, or to religious institutes, Societies of Apostolic Life or whatever, can be fruitful, but yet the university stands sort of independent, and it has this sort of intentional lay leadership and direction to it. and that you said it's beneficial. And I can see how it can be beneficial, but I suppose what I'm saying is I don't think it can be taken as read that it necessarily would be, because isn't the story of much of a Catholic universities in the United States is that they are founded by the church. They are founded by institutions of the church, religious orders, whatever it is. And then they get sort of hived off in what you might call an act of mass illicit appropriation or expropriation, and sort of turned into independent lay bodies. And as they've drifted away from the church. They've drifted away from their Catholic identity. They've drifted away from all the things that made them uniquely Catholic in the first place. So is it a question of founding intent and staying true to that, to your mind? Because I don't suppose the evidence we've seen in this country is that independent lay leadership is necessarily good for a Catholic university.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I agree with your explanation of why a number of Catholic universities have drifted away from their founding purpose, and I'd be happy to explore that. I think it matters that it was Bishop Gorman who decided on this structure in collaboration with a group of, at that time, all laymen. He could have gone different directions. There was a religious community that held the right to refound the University of Dallas. They tried to, a community of sisters, Sisters of Our Lady of Namur, who were based in Fort Worth and ran a junior college at the time. There was an earlier iteration of the University of Dallas. We were actually founded initially, I think it was 1905, and we were in Dallas proper. We're just on the cusp of Dallas right now, near where Dallas or Jesuit preparatory school is. And it was a different kind of university. We beat University of Notre Dame in football at one point.
It's not as hard as I gathered the reputation suggests.
Well, it's really hard when you don't have a football team, which we don't now. So there was this charter. There was a group of women religious who didn't feel up to the task. Bishop Gorman was himself a great academic, a historian, educated at Freiburg, who understood what would be required to have a great Catholic university. And he said that he wanted the University of Dallas to be that, to be a great Catholic university, to make real contributions to the growing body of knowledge, and not just to be a Catholic university serving the local Catholic population. And that entailed establishing a graduate school. That was part of the very origin of this refounding of the University of Dallas in 1955, and then opened our doors in 56. And he thought it was critical to have this kind of structure. So it was baked in from the beginning with an established relationship with the diocese. And the way I think about the University of Dallas versus a Franciscan, which had really fallen away in the 70s, and it was, they have their own story about how they were regarded as a great party school. And Playboy magazine apparently listed them in the top 10.
I don't know what that is, Dr. Sanford.
Yeah.
Elaborate, please.
And then Father Michael Scanlon refounded it. And so Franciscan has a kind of revert vibe to it as an institution. We're like a cradle Catholic institution that has continued to mature and become more fully who we are. So there's not a concern, a real concern that we're about to slide into something that we were before. We've resisted the trend of decimating our core curriculum, which I think is a major factor in what happened at a lot of these other universities, where they were chasing new programs with really large majors that effectively forced that kind of elision of their core curriculum. And those other religious communities around us help build us up. Our Cistercian brethren, our Dominican brethren, we've got Nashville Dominicans teaching for us now, and we're building a convent for them on campus. Their fidelity helps to build up what we're all about. So we cannot be complacent and just say we're going to be fine. But our structure and our intellectual vision work hand in hand. Newman was baked into the very beginning, and then when Corde, Ecclesiae came out, I think the response here was, well, yeah, of course. And so there's this organic growth that is, I think, really predicated upon that vision that Bishop Gorman had.
It's an extraordinary responsibility for you and the board then to kind of continue to challenge yourself to retain and sort of assess your own Catholic identity and your own fidelity to the teachings of the church. I mean, it just seems that would be a tremendous responsibility. And one of the temptations that I would think about is just as you kind of look at the landscape of higher ed in America now, not just Catholic higher ed, but higher ed, a lot of schools are facing sort of demographic and financial challenges. How do we continue to make the thing run, especially how do we continue to make the thing run and have students who come and pay tuition? And the temptations are things like asynchronous instruction and sort of very large online programs, and sort of figuring out how to navigate where to sort of dip your toe into some of those waters and to retain at the same time the sort of core sense that is at the heart of the University of Dallas would be a challenge. So how do you assess how big is enough and what the right kind of growth looks like for a place like this?
Yeah, no, that's another timely question, because our enrollments have been trending up, and we're increasingly selective. We're trying to be really reflective about the sort of students who are going to flourish here. They don't have to be the kind of students who will graduate yet, but they need to be the sort of students who will graduate as the kind of ideal University of Dallas graduate. And we have a couple of stable elements that help push against that trend towards online education or over large classes. One of which is the core curriculum itself. We're not going to fold on that, and there have been periodic pressures to do so. Engineering, big field, we could do so much. If we had an engineering degree, it would attract a lot of young men, because a disproportionate number of men are finding their way into engineering, and all of these liberal arts schools are a little imbalanced in terms of men and women. That's the logic I hear amongst the leaders of other universities, not just Catholic universities. For us to do that would jettison a substantial part of the core curriculum. We'll get rid of our language requirement, get rid of maybe 2 of those literature courses. They'll still have 2, right? And people have made their bargains, and sometimes it works just fine, but in the sense of you still have something. But what it is to be an undergraduate student at this university needs to mean more or less the same thing continuously. So we're committed as a board to that. And then we have this Rome program. We've just opened up a summer term because it was experimental after COVID. Not as many students were able to go. And although we did persevere with that program, that campus can only be so large. And I want our sophomores and some juniors to still be able to spend a semester there. If we get too big, that won't be possible. The summer term is a way to do some of that, but that's a kind of structural containment that we need to be very receptive to. The local authorities won't let us get too big on that campus. And then I think that you lose the intimacy of the community if you get too large. So I think maybe in 5 to 10 years we might climb up to 2,100 students. We're 1,500 give or take on the undergraduate level. Still be able to do these things. We'll need some additional buildings. From a financial stability perspective, that gives a lot of stability. But I don't want to be too large on the undergrad. You can expand a lot on the graduate level. And that's where we've found some real success with these other modalities. And certainly not in our PhD program, but we have a celebrated master's in classical education, almost all of the students of which are active teachers in Arizona and in California. And so they need a predominantly online education supplemented with some other engagements. It's not what we would want for an undergraduate path, but it makes sense for somebody who is actively engaged in the art of teaching and wants to go deeper.
You know, I'm struck by the way that Catholic universities can sort of discern their own charism in a very real way. And the reason I'm thinking about that is that there's another Catholic university president who I really respect, Monsignor Jim Shea, who I'm sure you know from the University of Mary. And about a year ago, I asked Monsignor Shea, the University of Mary, as you probably know, is undergoing this kind of reversion and renewal period in which the university is sort of more deeply embracing and identifying its sort of Catholic mission. And I asked him, you know, as that's happening, what percentage of students he hoped would come to the campus already as practicing Catholics. And to my surprise, he said that he hoped it wouldn't get much higher than 50. And I was surprised because I expected that he would want to be moving in the direction of sort of a fully Catholic campus. And he said, no, he said, this university has always been a regional university, and I really like the idea of this being a place where people come because they want to study nursing or business or something, and we can proclaim the gospel to them and catechize them. And maybe we won't, you know, some seeds will fall on rocky soil, but I sort of think that our charism is an evangelical charism. As I hear you talk, it sounds to me, and I think there's a viable place for that, but it's not the charism of everything. And as I hear you talk, it sounds to me like part of the charism of the University of Dallas, at least as I hear it, is to sort of help people who really may begin with perhaps an unfocused or unpolished sort of Catholic vision of the world, to really help them crystallize that, to be able to, again, sort of build culture from a deeply Catholic perspective. Am I reading that right?
You know, I think that's partly right. We have always attracted undergraduate students who want a really outstanding liberal arts education who are not Catholic. They all take our theology courses and benefit from them. So roughly about 75% of our undergraduate population at least begins as Catholic, and we have some conversions, and we've got focus missionaries on campus working on Bible studies with Catholic and non-Catholic students, and so to those other religious communities I was talking about, a lot of spiritual direction and so forth. So yeah, for Catholics coming in, I want that. I want to be a place that welcomes non-Catholics to continue to do that. We've had Jewish, Muslim students, other Christian faiths, students without any faith, and we actually did some tracking of the experience of our non-Catholic students, I think last year, maybe a year and a half ago, and they all listed the Catholicism of the University of Dallas as one of its most attractive features. One on the front end, because you know the other thing we haven't really talked about is the student life side of a Catholic university. There's a commitment to at least striving to live righteously in one's activities outside of the classroom. This Bacchanalian feast. In some ways,
but I understand that there are confessions available for the whole of tomorrow, so I'm grateful for that.
And in some ways, it might contribute to our efforts to achieve that. And
a proper sense of shame can be a wonderful prompt to complete.
It works, yeah. So, you know, I'm very clear with our prospective students that you don't need to be Catholic to enter the University of Dallas. You won't be required to convert. You don't have to go to Mass. And yet there's something that is uplifting and encouraging and deepening about being in the kind of environment that we provide. And I hear that from our alumni. So the graduate programs are much less evenly Catholic than the undergraduate, but I don't have it as a goal to only attract Catholic students and deepen their faith. But for those who are Catholic already, I want to make sure that happens here. And for those who are interested in exploring Catholicism, I want there to be invitations, but I also want our non-Catholic students to flourish here. And who knows what seeds will sprout.
What about faculty and academic freedom? Because so the church teaches in John Paul II and Ex Corde and everything say academic freedom is a real thing, and it has to be prized, and it has to be enshrined in the character of the university, but circumscribed by truth and the common good. And it seems to me that in American Catholic universities, there are two kinds of models. And admittedly, this is my own formulation, so you don't have to accept it if you don't want. But it seems to me there's a kind of land of lakes mentality, which says, well, what circumscribes that freedom with the truth and the common good is the wider university context, the sort of totality of the community. And within that community, there are dissenting voices. There are voices that oppose even the truth and the common good. And we've seen this, with professors at Notre Dame sort of writing letters in the Chicago Tribune championing abortion and things like that. And it's held in some ways that, there is a place within the Catholic university community under academic freedom for these dissenting voices, because it creates the sort of dialogue and tension which allows for academic exploration and the development of truth and the better articulation of the common good and that sort of thing. And then the other alternative view is that the circumscription of academic freedom by truth and the common good applies to each individual in their pursuit of academic studies. To which one do you subscribe, if either?
Neither. So you rightly pointed to that passage, and John Paul II repeats it 3 or 4 times throughout Ex Corde. He's a creature of the university, and he had a deep appreciation for academic freedom, but it needs to be circumscribed by the truth and the common good. At the heart of the Land O'Lakes debacle was a settled conviction that one cannot be faithfully Catholic and really academically excellent.
Which is the same as basically the sort of atheist fallacy that you can't have both a God who imposes order for our flourishing. You can't be truly free if you are also under the truth.
Right. That's right. We're, in point of fact, as I mentioned Augustine earlier, right, our freedom is grounded in subjection to the truth. And St. Thomas Aquinas recognizes that there is no free human action without the necessity of your will's inclination towards flourishing, right? So this interplay between necessity and subjection is precisely what makes freedom possible. So there are there's a spectrum of belief about or thought about what exactly academic freedom is. I think people often fall into thinking of it in terms of freedom of expression. It's very different. Academic freedom's circumscription by the truth certainly entails fidelity to the insights of your discipline, right? So somebody who is going to defend the phlogiston theory of interaction ought not to be teaching chemistry, right? Because that's not how things work, right? Other disciplines are more difficult in determining, well, is this within disciplinary boundaries or not, right? So part of the review of faculty is a focus on whether or not they're really being excellent in their field. St. John Paul II emphasizes this promotion of humanity, which is connected to what you were saying about culture before, that I think is entailed by what he means by the common good, right? So is your research, is your teaching advancing the human good, the cultural good? Is it advancing humanity in some significant way, or is it destructive of it in some way? Okay, that's another set of reflections that those charged with oversight need to be attentive to. And then if you're going to say things about those things that we take to be settled as matters of faith and morals, are you accurately describing them? Are you in some way deceptively describing them, right? If you say, well, the church makes room for a position on abortion that it doesn't, right? Are you misleading in some way? And if we were to have a speaker who's engaged in articulating a position that is contrary to the church, do we have people there who can say, well, that's not actually what the church teaches, right? So in some ways, saying this is what the church teaches, or you can believe this as a faithful Catholic, right? That in some ways is far more destructive, because many people don't know exactly. So you got to be clear about what really is the case with regard to Catholic teaching and what isn't. And
Sort of honest atheism is preferable to dishonest Catholicism, as
yes.
it were.
I want to go back, if we can, to this notion that you raised at the beginning about University of Dallas graduates going on to various leadership positions in various fields and things like that. And it seems to me that part of what you were doing is talking about the way in which a classical formation in the Western tradition kind of helps people in order to be of service to humanity in those ways. But what is the balance? How do universities approach the balance between sort of being able to master the emerging sort of technes, which are extraordinary? Machine learning technology is extraordinary and will probably put Ed and I out of business in about 15 minutes if we're not careful. And so there's a way in which one must really be able to sort of get one's arms around those things, and at the same time be able to think about them reasonably and competently. And it just seems like 4 years isn't very much time to even begin to scratch the surface of both some sort of technical mastery and at the same time the kind of philosophical and theological formation for a worldview that allows one to think about what the thing is for. How do you think about what to prioritize pedagogically as you think through all of those things?
To take a virtue-based approach to education, first and foremost, as opposed to skills-based. I mean, the skills are necessary acquisitions as you're cultivating the intellectual virtues, and you need to have requisite moral virtues in order to persevere in your studies, right? What I mean by that is understanding the roots of things, right? So we do have a computer science major. It's treated by some who study and teach in it as a liberal art, part of mathematics, deeply based in logic. Coding is a kind of language. And those students have all the rest of the core curriculum at their disposal. They have not played with the latest gadgets necessarily in the classroom, but they understand the roots of the discipline in ways that are radically advanced over the students at other institutions who might have lots of neat and shiny things to play with that produce essays, right? So yeah, chatbot might be able to write a passable essay, but
JD has them write limericks, actually.
yeah,
Filthy limericks. No,
About canon law.
That's actually more true than the filthy thing.
but there's another thing that we spend a lot of time encouraging and are plugging our students into, which is internship opportunities. So along the way, many of our students are trying out what is it like to work with a physician? What is it like to work in a law firm? Have an internship. Get your hands dirty and see what people are messing with in those fields. But our graduates excel because they can write well, they speak effectively, they think clearly, and they go to the roots of whatever it is that their field is engaged in. They want to understand it from the ground up, and that allows genuine mastery, so that then they can rise in their exercise of that particular field.
What is the takeaway for the people who are listening to this podcast who are not going to the University of Dallas and are not going to go to the University of Dallas?
They should feel sad that they're not here.
But I mean, you're suggesting an approach to human formation which is very attractive, and the most sort of I think it's probably true that the best sort of immersive experience of that is the university. But I've come across more and more people who did not have that kind of university experience.
I did not have that kind of university.
And it shows that in a lot of ways that we can talk about.
No, I have a stunted character intellectually and morally, JD. I'm aware of that.
We can talk about that at home, dear. But the thing,
We were mistaken for a couple at breakfast this morning.
We were mistaken as a couple for breakfast this morning, and I think it's because we were wearing these shirts and we weren't in Fort Worth. That's a story. That's a story for another time. Thank you for being honest, sir. These shirts are awesome. Listen, we just come across more and more people who say, I hear about this kind of renewal in Catholic education, and I didn't have that. I went to Large State University, and I'm very glad for what I learned there, but it wasn't this. Or I paid a lot for Land O'Lakes Catholic University, and I didn't have this. And how could I get my arms around some of this?
Yeah, no, that's something that's near and dear to my heart. When I first arrived here as dean of the undergraduate college, I was meeting with a group of alumni who just said, we want to continue to participate in this education. And then I started thinking about others who never experienced it. And we started hosting lectures in different locations. And then I was able to work with a benefactor to put together several years of basically free courses on Catholic faith and culture, we call it. And we've got videos available for free, workbooks, and open invitations to whoever wants to come in. And then working with Claire Venegas, our vice president for marketing and communication, and Shannon Valenzuela, Dr. Valenzuela, and Dr. Michael West, we thought, well, maybe there's a way to invite more people into this. And that became The Quest. I don't know if you've heard of The Quest, but EWTN aired it twice. And we're just about done with the second season of The Quest. So this is a mini series that's intellectually engaging and inviting and opens up horizons for exploration, particularly for those who've not had the benefits of the University of Dallas education, or good reminders for those who have had that. And we're looking for additional ways. We bring in speakers. We've got podcast series ourselves, not as awesome as yours is.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, ours is not actually that awesome.
It's even ours is even more awesome, to be blunt.
But I say that, can I have the doctorate, or is that totally off the table now?
Well, if you look at our website, we have a St. Ambrose Center for Catholic Liberal Education and Culture, and Liberal Learning for Life is listed there. You can find all kinds of material available there, or you can just go straight to Liberal Learning for Life. But this is the phrase that we've used to capture our efforts to just externalize the University of Dallas, to provide it as a kind of feast without cost to those who are participating, because we feel called to do that. One of the pillars of our new strategic plan is to find new and even more significant ways to be of service to church and country. And this is one of the ways in which we're endeavoring to do just that.
Thanks. Yeah, that's very cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. And this has been a great conversation, Dr. Sanford, but we can't really let you go without our own open invitation. On this show of ours, we like to play a lot of games. Shenanigans are really the best part for us. And so we have prepared a couple of games for you. We don't have to play them all, but would you like to play a game?
What kind of game?
It doesn't work that way.
Sure, I'm game.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, Ed, you're gonna take the point on this, are you not? I think we might need Michelle. I think you have. Are you gonna share that to Ed's phone? We have a game.
Yeah, I don't have it on me. Is Michelle still here?
I mean, is this like chess?
It's not like chess.
Is it
getting to know?
It's more like target practice.
It's more like target practice. Might be true. It's just these people want to know more about you, and we do too.
Yeah, great.
And we find that perhaps
one of the things that we like to do, and it's a game we sort of coined, and it's a way for me to. JD, you probably know this because you've known him for a few years, has difficulty offering concise answers. And so to take his temperature on things, I will often restrict him to just saying yes or no. And he's actually finds that very difficult.
No, it's not, there's a...
Yeah, exactly. So what I will sometimes do is I will present him with a list of things, and he will only be allowed to say yes or no.
That's so non-Thomistic. Sick
No,
ethics.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
See
That's
how easy it
exactly-
is?
Right. So
The
this
idea
is
is that
it's a scriptural game because you're going to let your yes be yes,
yes,
and
your no be no.
Unless you need to qualify it in some way, and we'll probably
No, you're not allowed to
it.
qualify it some way. You can make facial expressions or
You know how hard this is for a philosopher to
Yes,
not
exactly.
qualify things?
Or a university
Yes.
president.
I will do my best.
Okay. Well, no, these are just things that we've noticed around.
This is Dallas, yes or no, vis-a-vis things we've seen since we got to the airport.
Yeah.
No preparation, Dallas, yes or no is effectively
Yeah.
this.
Billy Bobs,
Yes?
giant belt buckles,
No.
the UD Cap Bar,
Absolutely yes.
ice storms,
Yes.
controversial, Texas Instruments,
No. Yes.
Shiner beer.
Yes.
What was going on there? There was a lot of processing.
I
in
did-
that one. What were you
I
weighing?
drank a lot of Shiner beer the
Get-
first night I got into town, and I thought it was delightful.
You were weighing something
Congratulations.
there.
Well, actually, okay, so here's one for you. This is a slightly longer noun, but it's nevertheless something I observed, which I think is particular to Dallas because I've never seen it everywhere, which is combination Mexican cantina bars and Indian takeaway restaurants.
Yes.
Is this a broad Dallas
Is this
phenomenon?
a normal thing
This
here?
is
'Cause it was
something that happens?
fantastic.
Yeah.
I got to drink beer, order Indian food, and watch cricket on television, which I didn't know you could do that. It was
Particularly in DFW and Irving, Las Colinas.
fabulous. I had a great time. Okay, Whataburger.
Yes.
Okay. The Houston Texans.
No.
Deep fried charcuterie board.
Yes.
I don't know what that is, but I want one, right? The Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
Terrell Owens.
No.
I don't actually know who that is. That makes
Yes. He's a
that
great
made that
receiver.
fun for me. FC Dallas.
Yes.
That's the entire fan base of FC Dallas right there, by the way.
Medieval
Everyone else
Times.
is Googling that on their phone or their watch right now. What the hell is FC Dallas?
Medieval Times.
No.
I forgive me, but I have to intervene here. I spent most of my life living in the United Kingdom, and now I live back in the States with my wife and daughter. And whenever family come over from London to visit us, and it's their first time in their country, and I say, would you like the most authentic American experience possible? And they say, yes. I take them to Medieval Times. It is the most American thing in the world. I urge you, give it another try.
It's the misnaming, right? If you
No, but
think you're
that's what
having
makes it
a
American.
medieval times experience,
That's what's so
I,
good.
I know,
yeah.
but I don't like to deceive people. I'm a truth seeker.
I understand that, but I mean the sort of promiscuous way that American culture confuses the Renaissance with medieval times, and I love that. It's beautiful. Okay, Willie Nelson.
No.
What? I mean, this is your interview and all, but he's just wrong about that. I've never heard anyone say no to Willie Nelson.
Well, you just did.
Other than the IRS, obviously, has been. Wow.
Lawrence v. Texas.
Jeez, Ed, come on.
I'm trying to remember exactly what that case is.
That's an excellent dodge. Chip and Joanna Gaines. I don't know
Sure.
who that is too.
Sure.
I know I think you did very well there. I know what fully 2/3 of these things are. So
No, you did a great job, but this one is harder because what we're going to play now is this is of course Groundhog Weekend. We were invited to be here as part of the Groundhog festivities, and so we felt that we should contribute something to the groundhogging of it all. And so these are, I suppose, groundhog. I presume, as the University of Dallas president, that you are the world's foremost expert in groundhogs.
I know a few things about marmots.
Well, let's see. Groundhogs, Dr. Sanford, are considered the most solitary members of the squirrel family, but how do they communicate with each other?
Through chatter.
Through chatter, you'd think, but it's whistling, I'm afraid. Groundhogs.
Actually,
notorious-
whistling pigs is one of the nicknames for a groundhog.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
Wow, that was a nice recovery. That's very good, I think. Okay. I'm just kind of flipping through. I didn't write these questions, but I'm asking them.
Did you know that there are no groundhogs native to Texas?
No, I didn't know that. Why would I know that?
Okay, what is going on then? What is this
Yeah,
hunting
can
of?
you explain to us?
Is this like the Texas equivalent of a snark hunt? Like,
This is
you get a prize if you catch the groundhog.
something like that. It's the whimsy of University of Dallas students to 60 years ago establish a festivity dedicated to an animal that doesn't exist in these regions.
See, that's beautiful. Did Punxsutawney Phil see his shadow this year? Do you know?
He did.
He did. Does the University of Dallas have its own, Irv or something like that? Do you have your own groundhog that you can?
I believe it's stuffed.
It's stuffed. Can you eat? Can you eat groundhog?
Groundhog Day is not really about the groundhog seeing or not seeing his shadow. It's about making something.
Watching him burn.
It's about making something out of nothing. It's deeply Catholic.
It's deeply,
because we're saying let there be a celebration without really caring about what happens in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
This is a feast of any number of people who have recently been removed from the calendar for the crime of never having existed, but here at the University of Dallas. And I can't ask you any more questions after that. You've done very well. Thank you for putting up with us, Dr. Sanford. Please give him a round of applause. And
what I want to say, what I actually said before JD proposed the honorary degrees is the pillar has really become a pillar of significant and serious reflection on matters in the church. I want to thank you both for the bold step you took in founding the pillar. I know it's not been easy. You've got already a remarkable reach, and the fidelity of your reporting and the depth of your reflections, coupled with a sense of humor, whimsy.
Fantastic dress sense.
It's a winning formula, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for being seen in public with us. That's a rare thing these days. We're very grateful.
I'll even do it again, Jim.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful. When we come back for the doctorates, we'll be back here at the University of Dallas. Thank you very much, Dr. Sanford.
Thank you
The
both.
Pillar Production is what do I say now? The Pillar Podcast is a production of Pillar Media and Ed and JD Production. I'm your host, JD Flynn, with my podcasting partner, Ed Condon, and especially we're grateful today for our guest, the president of the University of Dallas, Dr. Jonathan Sanford. Thank you, Dr. Sanford.
My pleasure.